Sofie Schunk. I've been a multi-sport athlete my entire life. I'm primarily focusing on running goals, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was age 16. When I was back in high school and diagnosed with T1D, talking to my parents and everyone around me, we thought it'd be difficult for me to exercise. Once I started talking with my endocrinologists and the T1D community, we put a plan in action, and it was possible. And it wasn't until I went to college and met other athletes with T1D that I really started to grow in my own treatment plan. And putting that into action, I think even my endocrinologist has told my story to other kids that were once afraid to exercise with type 1 diabetes. The process of becoming an athlete isn't easy at first. It's definitely time consuming. You have to work with many people around you to learn what works. Your support group, your parents, your endocrinologist. It doesn't always work at first. I've had so many frustrating moments where I've had to forgive myself, and that was my biggest learning lesson, is forgiving myself when I had a low or a high during training. And that happened all the time. But once I got past it and started to learn what works for me, it's now, I wouldn't say a piece of cake. I still make mistakes, but it's a lot easier and less time consuming, and people around me know when I need sugar, they know when I need insulin, they are aware. One thing that's really worked for me is using a journal. I really like to visualize where I'm headed, and it's been important for recording workouts, recording races. I can look at my CGM trends, my numbers, what I ate, my insulin levels, and use that as a tool moving forward for future races and training. Training and game day can have dramatically different effects on our type 1 diabetes. Training usually is more predictable, whereas game day you have the adrenaline and the stress responses that you don't typically get in training. And in this case, it can cause your blood sugar to spike. A spike in blood sugar on a game day is not something you'd like to see as a person with type 1 diabetes, but that being said, you learn that it's part of the stress response, and you actually can have high performance as long as you're keeping an eye on it. Everyone is a little bit different with their type 1 diabetes and going to have different reactions, especially with different sports. But when we go to game day, it's not something we're used to, and the diabetes management can be a lot different, especially learning, do you take insulin or do you not? And that took me years, because I learned I'm insulin sensitive, so I don't necessarily take insulin, but someone else might. I learned that by trial and error and going low during races if I took insulin. So I learned I have to live with the blood glucose spike. Cooldowns are extremely important for people with type 1 diabetes. For example, if you just sit down after you race, your muscles aren't contracting and your insulin levels are most likely lower from racing. So what happens is you can get a blood sugar spike. In order to avoid this, it's important to cool down, get your body moving, get your blood flowing. Even just a 10 to 15 minute walk, or for me, an easy jog, will help bring that blood sugar down and relax your body. Now that I've learned everything I know from my endocrinologist, the T1D community, everything I've learned about myself, writing things down before and after training, I've gotten it down to a science, and I know all the times where I was frustrated with my blood sugars. I know it all paid off, and I can now be an athlete with type 1 diabetes.